Okay. So what we are talking about today are the quarterly metrics. So we have this tool, and I'll drop it in the chat, is a spreadsheet that goes back several years. I think they're just hidden tabs. So we're going back all the way to 2015, where you can see different metrics in terms of like what community partners we were engaging and how we were engaging them. And then over time, we've adjusted metrics based on what we needed to track internally to understand whether we were having success in our work, but also trying to match it externally with the metrics we're often asked to report for grants. So a lot of this started years ago because our grants were very metric based. We would assign grant outcomes that would say we're going to engage, 300 community partners in 1 year towards safe water solutions. And everything that we do with people would go into that. So everyone who attends community meetings, who goes to a hearing, a rally, gets their well tested, like any way that they could engage in our work, that would be considered toward that. And that used to be a really big marker of our success externally to funders. Since Natalie's been in her position, she's done a really good job of working with funders to better understand that numbers are great and they are an indicator of success, but they're not the only indicator. And bigger pieces of success, like this year, it doesn't matter necessarily how many people we engaged on 222. If we passed 222 and it was community led, that's the most important thing. So a lot of our grants have kind of moved away from having to report specific numbers, more so to like qualitatively explain the advocacy and organizing that we've been doing. But we still like to gather these metrics quarterly just to keep all of us on the same kind of understanding of where our work stands. So they've, like I said, they've kind of shifted over time. But this is our current dashboard, and you can see the metrics that are already in there for quarter 1. Which are pretty low, but a lot of that is also reflective of just COVID. We're just now getting back into doing organizing and doing stuff in person. But again, that's another reason this can be helpful too, just historically to see like, once we're through this time of COVID, knock on wood, getting back into 2019 numbers of maybe engaging hundreds of people each quarter in the work that we're doing. Like it helps just with an indicator of understanding where we should be at or have been historically. So we generally have somebody on staff who helps to pull these, and as part of your position, communications and data associate, this is what you'll be responsible for each quarter. And I do think it's helpful to, like we talked about briefly earlier in the week, it's because the more that you understand where certain people are working with us and the different programs, the better you can continue to kind of market our work and share what we've been doing. And hopefully I've always found this task to be pretty, I don't know, it's like mindless, I guess. It's something that you can just sit and get done and it feels good and you check it off a list. So hopefully it feels that way for you, or we'll make sure that you get the resources you need for that. The biggest piece that's going to take the most time is this engagement section. And this is all driven by the tags of Nation Builder. I think you might not have been on staff yet when we did our all staff Nation Builder trainings, but there's been varying levels of Nation Builder posting and tagging in the last few years. And it's something that we're really trying to get back in the habit of. Otherwise, we don't have one cohesive understanding, like one database that shows all the ways that people are interacting with us. So something to keep in mind. It may be that I think we're going to go in and we're not going to see a lot of tags. And part of this position as well is also, as we're getting close to the end of the quarter, as you've seen Christina send those emails of reminding people like, hey, I'm going to pull these and these are going to be given to our board and our leadership and potentially funders. So if you want your work to be reflected, like, let's make sure we're updating our database. But yeah, so that all goes into this engagement section. It's something that everybody on the entire team should be helping to input into Nation Builder as they're interacting with folks. And then we have that top line number of like number of people we've engaged overall. So that's just everybody. And then we break it down by who we consider specific impacted residents. So really just people who live in the communities that we're focused on. So then that excludes any like ally partners that might attend events that we'd still be tagging. And then from there, it's just broken down by our specific campaign work. So we'll get into those specifically, but any questions on why it's important or the kind of work that we're tracking here?
Just really quick question. For example, for media like stories, like when I went to Ruth, I was just with her while CNN was taking her pictures. Am I supposed to be tagging that, or is that part of like Pedro's responsibility to tag? Because that's another way that we engage, or is that even considered part of the metric?
No, we should definitely be tagging that. That is something that's been on my list this week to get around to tagging. I think technically it would be either you or Pedro, but that is something that I'm going to have Paula help with this summer, I think, in helping us go back in time and capture some people who have done interviews in the past few years who might not have that information in Nation Builder. Because then also outside of just gathering these metrics, then you theoretically should be able to go to Ruth's profile and say like, oh, wow, she spoke to media 3 times this quarter and 2 times last quarter, and she's a pro and she has no problem. Whereas you could go to Simona's profile and be like, oh, wow, she has not spoken to media in 3 years. Let's keep that in mind when we call her. Like she might not be comfortable with it. So yes, we should be doing that. No, it's not your responsibility right now, but it's something that we can talk about. Not at this moment in time.
Okay.
But good question. And it's something that gets pulled in. So that's what I mean too, that we talked about Tuesday. Like this is always a changing list. It's something that we need to talk about as a team before we make changes, but we're not always necessarily tracking what's most important. In our communication section, we have number of community partners that were featured in a story. And that's something we're tracking in that media tool where we have everything listed. But so, I mean, it's kind of tracked there, but it could make sense to further pull out the metric in Nation Builder. But right now they just go into that overall engaged number.
Okay, makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, so that's engagement. Communications, I'm going to go ahead and take off my name. This one is definitely something that you are the owner of, and none of this except for the email information and the text list information, those are in Nation Builder, but it's different than this. Everything that you're pulling for communication should feel really familiar in the way that you've pulled like open rates before, how many emails we've sent, pulling in followers on social media. And this in particular is the area that I think as you work on these at the end of June, I'd be interested in your thoughts of what you think we should also include here. We try to keep it pretty brief, but yeah, I want to make sure it's not just a checking the box to get these numbers down, but it's actually giving us information to work and strategize off of. So that could mean adding in other metrics.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. And then website, this is actually, oh, I see, switch account. We had an intern a few years ago who created this data studio analytics report. I don't know if you've ever used Data Studio.
No, I haven't, but that looks really cool.
Isn't it? Yeah, here, I'm actually, these are all the many things that when you join, I'm like, well, I don't want to throw everything on her lap, but I'm going to share this with you. Take a look, play around with it. It's not something I would say I think once he left and then once I left, I'm not sure how many people have come back to this, but I do think it's a really helpful tool because it helps us at a glance see all of these things and keep it up to date. So I think that it's worth reviewing and updating this and something that we use regularly to keep an eye on metrics.
Yeah. Okay.
So yep, so this website, just linking there. Because before we had a bunch of website stuff in here, but at some point, like a lot of comm stuff lives somewhere else. So even just linking, like see the real-time updates, I feel like is most helpful. And then media stories come from that media tracking doc. So these should be pretty straightforward. I don't think you'll have any issues pulling stuff here. Fund development, I need to check with Let me make a note. I should check with Christina and Natalie on this, because I know that once she hires her fund development coordinator, that's who should be in charge of pulling these, because they're the one who's going to be tracking who our donors are, how much money we're raising, and they're going to be keeping that data clean and up to date. In the meantime, Christina may ask for your support in doing this for this quarter as well. So I'm going to skip over it for now, but if needed, we can come back to this. This one's also pretty straightforward how you pull it. I find the engagement to be the toughest.
Okay.
We'll ignore this for a second though. So,
All
but
right.
that's tracking all of our fund development work. And then finally, we track Agua specific work. And again, I think this comes out of the fact that Agua has its own grants. And when this dashboard was originally created, it was very grant focused. So, and I think it's helpful to see what Agua is doing, because they do exist as an entity outside of us. So this is another piece where you'll be responsible for pulling, but they also come out of Nation Builder. So in the same way that you're pulling the metrics above, these ones are just going to be specific to our Agua members. And the majority of it is keeping track of like who is even part of Agua and how that's growing. Yep. So then, as I mentioned in YouTube, under the playlist, systems training. So right now there's a video for communications, engagement, Agua, and fund development. So like I said, I don't think things have changed drastically since I recorded those. So you're able to see section by section how those things are pooled here. In addition to, in the actual quarterly report template, there's a tab called instructions for metrics. And there's a row that breaks down each metric and how they suggest that you pull it in Nation Builder.
Oh, okay, got it. Oh, that's gonna be really helpful.
Yeah, the goal is to make it as like no brainer as possible, because it's just a lot to pull. Yes, so I think for purpose of today, I'm not going to make you sit and watch me pull every single metric. I actually think you're going to learn more from pulling them, but I just kind of want to go over a couple examples and then have the chance for you to ask any questions.
Okay, sounds good.
So what we're going to do is go to Nation Builder and we're going to pretend that we're trying to pull. We're going to pretend that we're trying to pull this overall engagement number for the quarter. It's not going to be ready because again, people are allowed to tag, plus things still happen until the end of June 30th. So that's another thing too. I would say you can take the week after the quarter ends, and by the end of that week, aim to have these done. If you need additional time, just let Natalie and Susanna know, or you can let me know and I can let them know. But yeah, because it takes a minute to find the time, but we want to make sure everyone has the chance to get all their tags in before you spend the time.
Usually, like, how long does it take for people to do these reports? I know right now it's like Eric and Christina, but like, do you know exactly, like, does it take them like a whole day or like a few hours or multiple days?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on how familiar you get with doing it. Because I would say you could probably do it in an hour to an hour and a half. But I do think it's a little tricky just to get used to it as you start moving through. The biggest thing that we try to do is even this first section that looks as if you're pulling, 20 metrics, which you are. What you're really doing though, is you're taking this total engagement number, pulling every tag of what happened in the quarter. That's what takes the most time. And then you're doing new filters every time for a new group. So you're going to pull, for the most part, it'll be like, so we had 96 people engaged in quarter one. I want to know how many of those 96 people were, oh, I guess that's not entirely true. Some of it is though. like how many of those had to do with your pulling subsets of that. So once you get your big filter of all of the tags, it goes pretty quickly because it's all subsets of the total engagement. I was thinking, well, I think this is one. So like you take the total engagement number, but then there's a tag called like water board member, and you just add, show me anybody who's part of that engaged filter, who's a water board member. Or you add anybody who's part of that and is a CWLN network member. So some of those are, it's pretty fast once you can get all of the tags for the quarter. And that's generally what takes the most time. And part of that is because Nation Builder only lets you put a certain number of tags in a filter, which I'll show you that. And then you have to like put it in a list and it's a whole thing. But then once you have that core group, it's hopefully easier. And then the comm stuff, especially because you're familiar with it, should be fast. There are a couple things in here that are a bit of a pain. The biggest one is this one, and we'll get into that in a minute, but it's how many other activities are AGWA members participating in outside of AGWA meetings. And it requires a breakdown of pulling every AGWA member, their tag list, and counting those tags. There are formulas and things that you can do to do it, but there are a couple things that are a bit time consuming. So I know that's not a clear answer. I would plan, I would hold like an afternoon to do this, or maybe a couple hours over a couple of days, especially as you're learning. But by quarter 4, I would say 2 hours tops.
Okay, got it.
Cool. Okay, so if I was pulling total engagement number, the very first thing I would do, well, and I can look here, so it explains it here. So you're going to take any tag that happened in the month in that quarter, you're going to add it to a filter and name it so that you know kind of what that's associated with. So for this, it'll be quarter 2, 2022 total engage. And we're going to exclude anybody on our staff email list. So that just makes sure that any of us who are staff, we're not getting included in those numbers and inflating them. And then you save the filter. And that's part of what's going to make, like I said, some of those things below faster, because once that's saved, then you can reuse it and just like remake it based on what you're looking at. So Nation Builder, you're going to come to the People tab, filter, add criteria, tags, multiple, and how they should be. This is why we have such a specific tagging system of like put the month and then the year and then this and that, is all toward the purpose of making this as easy as possible, because the months that we're in quarter 2 are April, May, and June. So I should be able to type in April 2022, May 2022, and June 2022, and everything that's tagged should pop up. And I shouldn't have to worry that I'm missing something. So for example, we have the AGWA meeting that was tagged in here for April. So that's one of the tags. Again, we have some media tags. I don't know who's been doing those. They're a little off, but that's fine. We can go back and fix them. And then that's all I see for April. So then same thing for May. AGWA, which tells me Christine is the only one who's been tagging. So, which I can't even blame her. I don't have any of my media tags in. So, oh, and the rally's not in either. So this is not the best example, but this is also a great example of why do not start pulling stuff until July 1st. You will bang your head and there will be tags missing, and it's just let staff get everything in before you try to tackle it. Maybe I'll look at the past quarter. Okay, this feels better. Oh, nope, not 2017. Or like, and then you can kind of, this is also what I mean of getting familiar. So like, if it's faster for you to copy and paste January 2022, or just type 2022 and just like start pulling. It's just like a lot of it is just manual clicking, but as you're familiar, you'll find the fastest way to do it, or whatever you're most comfortable with. So for this, I'm pulling any tag that happened in quarter 1. So I might actually I'm just gonna stop there, but you can catch the drift of like, this is a part
Yeah.
that can take a minute. You want to make sure that you're capturing everything.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do to make sure you're not missing anything, and it's really just kind of double checking people's work, is where it says tags, you can go to view all. So, and then you can put in, like, I'm just gonna search 2022 and see what pops up and see if anything's misspelled or might not pop up. So like, for example, this one is just Jan. So if I'd been typing in January, it wouldn't pop up. So there is like some light editing that would be helpful as you're looking through tags that you should do or plan to do. But for the most part, everything looks to be correct in here. Yeah, I would just hope nobody would put stuff in without the year. Yeah, okay, so I think we're good with what we have. We're gonna pretend that that's every tag that happened. Actually, there's not that many more, and then I can show you how it matches the touch. Gosh, I haven't done this in years. It's a throwback.
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 And it's Thursday too.
I know. TBT. Okay, so now I have every tag. So actually, because there are times when there are like 3 to 4 times this many tags, especially again, as we start doing more stuff in person. So that's what I mean of, you'll hit a point that it'll stop taking in new tags. And the only way you're going to know is you're going to keep like trying to type them and they're going to stop showing up at the bottom. So in the past, how I've done it actually, and you can decide what feels better to you. If there aren't that many, you can put them all in one filter, have the total engagement tag. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as, well, I don't want to save it because she probably already has one, but I would save it as Q1 2022 total engage. In the past though, something else that I've done is saving by month. So let's say there were only 2 tags for January. I'd just pull any for January. I'd save the filter as January 2022. I'd do the same thing for February, the same thing for March. And then what you're able to do with that, let me know if I'm going too fast, but you can then take that filter of people. If this was the whole month of January, I can add them to a list called like total engage, Q1 total engage. And then I can, it just helps for me. It was always helpful to be like one filter for each month, put all the filters and put them all to the same list of people, and then use that list to work off of. This is all going to make more sense once you're in here. But for now, I think, especially because I don't think there are enough tags that you're going to have to worry about the filter not working, you can just do it how it says in here, which is add all the tags for the month into one filter. If that stops being an issue or starts being an issue, just let me know and I can walk you through the other way. So then the next thing that we want to do, so whatever that number would have been when I had all of those tags selected, ideally it's 96 and it should match what she pulled. And the other nice thing about Nation Builder is it's unduplicated unless we accidentally have copies of their profile, which happens. But rather than like saying, we know we had X number of water board members plus X number of CWL and network members plus X number of Agua members, you can't just add all of these metrics together to get a total because many people are part of many different groups and programs. So it's so Nation Builder can be really helpful in that way because you're seeing an unduplicated total number of people who we engage with over time. I'm going to see if she has 2022. So these are all of her filters or Eric's filters from doing metrics in Q1. So I'm going to go to the Q1 2022 total engage filter. It's a total of 96 people, which is great. And then the next metric that you pull is how many of those people are people that we consider community partners. For us, that's just adding another tag to the filter. So I'm going to go to the filter. You can see all of the lovely tags that they have in here. They've already excluded the staff email list. And then I'm going to add one more row. And I'm going to say there's a tag called impacted resident. I think it should say this in the. Yep, add the tag impacted resident to the filter. Sorry, I'm going back and forth with my Zoom menu in the way. Filter. And then that shows us that 66 of the 96 people are people that we considered like our impacted residents, which is our target population. So then that should be the number that we see here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you had to, okay, I get it. So you had to do the overall list, and then from there you had to segment out. Oh, okay.
Yep, exactly. And then, like I said, everything that comes below that is a subsection of what we just pulled. Some of them are easier because some of them, it's going to be based on that whole tag list. So instead of just saying impacted resident, like I did, for example, this one, oh no, like water board members, and then water board impacted, it should say in here. So you don't necessarily have to go in the same order.
Yeah.
Because this one is using the total engaged filter, add water board member, city official, county. It spells out what tags to add and do the same thing that I just did. So instead of segmenting by impacted resident, we're going to do water board member, city official. And now we get 6, which matches what they had.
Okay, got it.
And then I think, the next one was water board, same thing, but impacted residents only, because sometimes we interact with like, I don't know, a city council member for the city of Visalia, for example. It's not someone who we consider a target audience because it's not a smaller, or not necessarily an incorporated, that's not a smaller community. So same thing, same filter, but just adding back the impacted resident tag. So yeah, I think, again, it just like kind of takes, I'm just gonna excel that so I keep going to it. It just takes like getting used to these, but you'll understand like, oh, once I pull that, I can pull this and I can pull this and I can pull this, and then you can get like 6 metrics pulled in a matter of a minute.
So for example, for this one, do you have to like, because I where you have the impacted resident number, right? It was 66 and we have the number from above. Do I have to go back and create the filter, or can I just add it myself?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
So, that's fine. So we had the number of impacted residents that we had pulled, right? It was 66, and then we had just done the water board and community. What was it? Water board,
City council, county official.
Yeah. So instead of like creating the filter, can I just add it myself since I already have those metrics, or do I have to create the filter on the Nation Builder?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You don't technically have to create a filter or save a filter for anything. It's more so just to make your life easier. So where all of these are already showing up, they're because Eric created them while he was pulling metrics. But you can see, I guess he did one around Board City, which he didn't have to, but he only has a handful of them. He's not saving a filter for every single metric. So you definitely don't have to do that.
Okay, got it.
And then I think the other one that's helpful. So the other way that we break down our work, it's either by person type. So that's where you get into these tags around like impacted resident or water board member, or it's by program type or campaign. So what that requires then is why we have these lovely little letters that come after the date, because we have our tags broken down into our 3 programs. So when you're looking to pull the data for the breakdown here for how many people were engaging in our drinking water program, groundwater, and community power, again, it can be helpful to start from that total engaged tab, because you already know these are all the tags you need. And if all I care about right now are the drinking water ones, I'm just going to X out of any of the others. Until all I have left are my drinking water tabs. If you're gonna do that, that's great. You're totally welcome to do that. Just know for your own sanity, if you're in a saved filter, just make sure you save it as a new filter or something, because what's helpful then to have that total engage is now, oh, I left one on accident. Now that I did this for drinking water and I filter and I get 62. Interesting. That's not great. Oh, well. Is what it is if they're off. That's weird. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm speaking aloud. Because I think all we care about once we get through total engage for the most part is impacted residents. So I bet I have to add that. And I bet if I read the instructions, it would say that. 40. Okay, that's also not that, but it's closer. Yeah, I think that's the other thing too. That's what this color coding is. Blue means it's an impacted resident specific metric. Black means it's everybody. So any of these that are blue, all we care about are anybody who also has that tag impacted resident. And for the most part, that's because, again, when we talk about our program work, we really mainly care about who we're engaging from the communities that we care about. So we don't necessarily need the breakdown on everything. But you can see also it kind of goes back and forth of like, we want to know everyone who engaged in policy work, but then also how about just those that are impacted? We want to know everybody who signed a petition, vice versa. So yeah, but so then that's for drinking water. And then I can go back to that same save filter. So he saved the drinking water one for himself so that he could come back to it if he needed to. But I can go back to that total engage filter and I can do the same thing, but this time I would just X out of all the drinking water and only leave the groundwater tags to understand how many people engaged. And then same thing for power building. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Then we go further than that. So that's those are program specific, and it looks like now we break it down by Central Valley and Central Coast, which is, I wonder how he does that. Let's look at his filter. Interesting. That may change at some point. But for now, we are marking all of our tags specifically if it's in the Central Coast, and they should continue to do that. So it's probably a matter of, so he started typing in like January 2022, looked for any tags that had to do with drinking water. And then from there, he looked to see if any of them had Central Coast as part of them. And if not, they didn't get included in this filter.
Okay.
Which again, he probably actually works smarter, not harder. If you come back to the filter that he already pulled for drinking water, he probably was able to just like X out of the ones that weren't Central Coast to get the Central Valley number, vice versa for Central Coast. So again, it's like saving filters can be very helpful to you personally, but it's not, we're not going to go and look and see if you have filters saved.
Okay. Okay.
And then these next ones, the only reason they're not harder, they're just more specific. So instead of looking at a tag that just says groundwater, again, you're gonna want to start from this main total engaged filter. We only care, since Sigma is groundwater, we only care about groundwater, but groundwater all has nitrates campaign and Sigma. So if we're trying to look at just those folks who engaged in Sigma, the only tags we're going to care about are the ones that say Sigma in them. So that's why when we make people tag, they have to tag program and then campaign. So to get the Sigma number, we would actually delete most of this out. Sigma 2. And then I think it had a sigma all, so that was 10. This is 10. And then they broke it down by impacted residents. So we're getting a pattern. These ones, let's see how those are pulled. Filter by sigma tags. So some of them might be a little more complicated, like they're gonna explicitly say how to do that. Or there's one like, how many boards did we outreach or train about Sigma? That's not necessarily clear in tagging. That one is like, reach out to the staff who's lead on Sigma and ask them how many boards we trained with. So there'll be notes in here occasionally, or ones where different staff will help you to pull those metrics. Yeah, but I think that's probably good enough for now, because I think once you have the time to go through here, and they're all a little different, but the concept is the same, how you pull stuff in Nation Builder.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay. Cool. Then, yeah, so like I said, I think that engagement piece is just, it's the most time consuming. But yeah. Okay, that'll be good. This. I wonder who tracks this now. Make a number note to ask. This one is just tracking anytime staff speak at, whenever asked to be speakers, and then we're estimating the total number of audience so that we can report on, like, we educated over 300 people on the drinking water crisis in Q1. That may be something I have you help with in the future. I need to figure out who's even in charge of this right now.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, the last one in here, that's just a little time consuming, and it'll explain it. So you can't do it just by filtering, as you can see. Really what you're going to do is you're going to get your total engagement filter. We're just going to pretend this is it. And you're going to go to actions and export.
Yeah.
And then you are going to look at where people live. And we are going to only count the communities that are our small, rural, unincorporated communities. And that's not necessarily going to be straightforward. It's something so helpful. It's like, you can Google it. You can also ask me. I'm happy to help you figure that out. It's something you'll become familiar with the names as you see more of them. But basically, you'll see their addresses here. And then you're going to just get an unduplicated list of the communities that we care about. So for us, it's like Ducor, Allensworth, Salinas is a big city on the Central Coast. We want to include them. Sultana, Visalia, we want to include. Tulare, we want to include. East Orosi, we would. And then, but you'll have that for the entire engaged list. And that's how you'll get the number of, the number of communities that we engaged with, but also then you're able to put a list here so that we have an ongoing list of who we've engaged with. And again, this is helpful historically because it helps us to see what areas of the valley and coast we've worked in and in the past and when. But this one is also really big about grants, and it's something that I think we still share now because they're interested to know specifically where we do work. So that one takes a little bit of time too. Cool. I think that's good for now. Like I said, comms, most of this, you already know where to pull it. Fund development, don't worry about it yet. And then Agua should be as simple as pulling like the Agua meeting tags. that are in Nation Builder or using the Agua member tag in Nation Builder. So anyways, there's information on those things in here as well as in the YouTube videos. I think that was all I wanted to go over. I'm going to stop recording.